Welcome to Listen English Story. Listening to stories helps you understand new words, phrases, and sentence structures naturally. Enjoy the story, and as you follow along, you'll find your English getting better. So, today's title is A Terrible Town. Chapter 1. You two can go on your big adventure, Ari said, but I'm staying home. No, you're coming with us. Denza tried to lift Ari, but he kicked her knee, so she put him down. Ari was 80 years old, but he wasn't human. He was a Sliwo with long white hair and wrinkled fingers. For a Sliwo, he was still young, like a teenager, compared to humans. I'm staying home, Ari repeated. I'm not changing my mind. I don't want to go out. I don't want to look for treasure. And I don't want to fight anyone. You can keep your adventure. Denza raised her hairy arms. I give up, she said. She was also a Sliwo, but louder and more playful than most. Their other friend was a Gloman. Gloman loved fighting, adventures, and, most of all, they loved treasure. The Gloman's name was Lump. No one knew how old he was. Lump liked to talk, but no one could understand him because he didn't speak Sliwo. However, he could write in the Sliwo language and often carried a notebook to write down his thoughts. Lump wrote a note to Ari. Ari, you can stay home. Thank you, Ari said. See, Lump agrees with me. No, I don't, Lump wrote. He pointed out the window, where a cloud of dust was rising in the distance. There were horses coming, and Ari could see humans riding them. One of the men was wearing a yellow coat and had a crown on his head. We don't need to go looking for adventure, Denza smiled. Adventure is coming to us. Ari, Denza, and Lump ran outside. The whole town was gathered outside. Bird's Field, their small, quiet town, was home to mostly Sliwos, with a few Gloman and other creatures. Everyone was staring at the humans on horseback. Visitors were rare, and these strangers looked strange. The horses slowed, and a tall man wearing a yellow coat and a crown rode a large black horse. He climbed down and asked, "Does anyone here know who I am?" The other riders stayed on their horses, all 8 of them. "Why don't you just tell us?" asked Piter, a small Sliwo who was the town baker. Most Sliwos knew the old English language. "We don't like mysteries, human." Denza stepped forward. "Are you a king from the east?" "Why do you think I'm a king?" he asked. She pointed at his crown. The man in yellow took off his crown. "Maybe I stole this," he said. He had a long red beard and bright blue eyes. Lump was excited by the crown. It was gold and must be worth a lot of money. "If you stole it," Piter said, "go give it back. We don't like thieves here." "What do you like?" the man asked. "Is there anything you like?" "We like to be left alone," Piter replied. One of the other riders started to move closer to Piter, but the leader waved him off. "No, let him be. You are almost correct," he said to Denza. "I was a king, but I'm not anymore." He dropped the crown on the ground. Lump wrote a note to Denza, asking her to get the crown for him, but Denza ignored it. "What happened?" she asked. "Why did you come to Bird's Field?" The leader explained, "These men are the last of the humans. There was a big war in the east, and everyone was killed. I am no longer a king because there's no one left to rule." "Then why have you come here?" Peter asked, his wife standing behind him with their daughters. "Don't worry about your girls," the man said. "My name is Yardam. I'm taking these men to Springfield, but we are lost." "My name is Denza. You need a guide," Denza offered. "Yes, I do," Yardam replied. "I don't have any money, but I have this gold crown. I'll give it to anyone who helps us." Ari had a question. "Why are you going to Springfield? What's there?" "There's a rumor that my friends went there. Maybe we aren't the last humans." "I need to find out." "We're on a quest. Lump wanted to go for the crown, and Denzo wanted to join too." "We'll help you," she said. Ari felt worried. He didn't want Denza to go with these strangers. "I'm going too," Ari said, "but only to protect you, Denza." One of Yardam's riders, who had a scar on his forehead, picked up the crown, cleaned it, and put it in his bag. Then he got back on his horse. "It's settled then," Yardam said. He pointed to Lump. "You ride with Sadida, the one with the scar. He'll keep the crown for now." Then, pointing at Ari, he said, "You ride with Ekin over there, and Denza, you'll ride with me." Chapter 2. After riding all day, they reached a town called Hillside. Hillside was surrounded by mountains and full of jewel miners. It was also a dangerous place with lots of criminals. The miners all carried weapons to protect themselves from thieves. It was late, and the sun had been down for hours. People were staring at them as they arrived. "We have to be careful here," Ari said. "We should have avoided Hillside. This way is faster," Denza replied. "And besides, no one is going to mess with 8 big humans. Maybe not," Ari thought. "But 2 Sluos might be in danger, and Glowmen don't fight. Lump won't be much help. We should stay close to the humans." "We're tired," Yardam said. "The horses need rest, and so do I. You want to stay here?" Ari asked. "We should keep going and camp outside the town." "We don't have camping gear. Do you want to sleep on the ground with no blanket or tent?" "No, but," Ari started. "Then we'll rent rooms for the night," Yardam said, heading toward a group of cabins. "We'll leave early in the morning, so you won't be scared for long, little Fluos." Denza laughed, but Ari wasn't happy. Yardam and his men tied up the horses, and Yardam walked toward the main cabin. "You said you didn't have any money," Ari said. Yardam turned around. "What?" "Back in Bird's Field, you said you had no money," Ari reminded him. "That's true," Yardam said. "What's your point?" "How will you pay for the rooms?" Ari asked. The other humans looked at their leader. Sadida smiled at Lump, who wrote "I" in his notebook. Ekin put his heavy hand on Ari's shoulder. "It's a good question, little Sliwo," Yardam said. "But don't worry, I'm very persuasive when I need to be." Yardam really was persuasive. He managed to get 5 large rooms, 1 for himself, 2 for his men, and 1 for Ari, Denza, and Lump to share. Denza took the bed, while Ari and Lump put blankets on the floor. At least the rooms were warm. "I don't trust him," Ari said. "How did he get us rooms without money?" Lump wrote a note. "Maybe he threatened the owner. Yes, that's what I think." Ari said. He must have told the owner that his men would hurt them. Keep your voice down, Denza warned. You think Yardam is dangerous? Then don't talk so loud, or he'll hear you. I'm just saying, we don't know him, and now we're spending the night in Hillside. This was a bad idea. I agree, Denza said. Bringing you was a bad idea. Lump laughed, and Ari rolled over, trying to fall asleep. The three of them were finally asleep when the door burst open. Dark figures stormed into the room. Ari sat up, but was hit on the head and knocked back down into Lump. They heard Denza scream and saw her being carried away by one of the intruders. Someone was kidnapping Denza. Ari, holding his bruised head, got up. The attackers weren't humans. They looked like miners, shorter, rounder, with pale skin and big eyes, perfect for seeing in the dark mines. One miner had grabbed Denza and was running outside with her. His hand covered her mouth, so she wasn't making any noise. Another miner stood by the door, looking confused. He was holding Denza's blanket instead of her. Suddenly, Ari heard the humans coming. They could help. Miners took Denza. Ari shouted. He saw Sadida and Ekin running toward him. The second miner quickly ran off into the darkness, catching up with the first one. It was hard to see in the dark. One miner had Denza. The other had her blanket. Ari chased after them, pointing in their direction. Go after them, he yelled at Sadida and Ekin. They have her. The miners were fast runners, already far ahead. One went left, the other went right. Which one has the girl? Ekin asked, running next to Ari. I can't tell, Ari said. Come with me, we'll chase the one on the left. Sadida, you go after the one on the right. Lump stayed at the cabin. Glowman never ran, and Lump wasn't a fast walker either. He waited and wrote down what had happened to explain it to Yardam when he arrived with the others. Don't worry, Yardam said when he heard the story. My men will catch them and save your friend. Lump waited with Yardam and the rest of the group. After an hour, Ari, Sadida, and Ekin returned, but Denza wasn't with them. I caught one of the miners, Sadida said, but he didn't have the girl. He only had the blanket. Did he say where the other miner was going? Yardam asked. Yes, Sadida replied, rubbing his fists. The kidnapper is taking Denza west to the sea towns. Why? Yardam asked. Are they heading to Springfield like us? Sadida nodded. They're going to try and sell her there. Ari was shocked. Sell her? She's a person, not a horse. There's a lot you don't know about the world, Yardam said, his blue eyes filled with sadness. You've never left Birdsfield, have you? No, Ari said. It's not safe to leave. Why isn't it safe? Yardam asked. Because bad things happen in other towns. Yardam looked down. But you don't know what those bad things are, do you? You've just been told the world isn't safe, but no one told you why. I didn't want to know why, Ari said, starting to cry. Why had he left his home? He had been right to stay there. This was all Denza's fault. And now she was gone. I understand, Yardam said, but get ready. We're leaving now. You're about to learn things you never wanted to know. Chapter 3. It took 2 days for Ari, Denza, Lump, and the others to reach Springfield. The town by the sea was beautiful, with clean, sandy beaches and a bright blue ocean. It looked like a nice place to live, but there was no time to relax or go fishing. Denza was still missing, and she might be held captive by the miner unless he had already sold her. "I've never seen anything like this," Lump wrote. "When we find Denza, we should live here." Ari agreed that the town was nice, but he still felt uneasy. "There's something wrong about this place," Ari said to Lump. "Do you feel it?" Lump just shrugged. Plowmen like him didn't feel much. Yardam, their leader, was riding ahead on his black horse, like he knew where he was going. "Have you been here before?" Ari asked. "No," Yardam replied. "So where are we going to look for Denza?" Yardam waved at Sedita, who rode closer. "What is it, my lord?" Sedita asked Yardam. Yardam pointed at Ari. "Tell this Sliwo where we're headed." "We're going to the slave market," Sedita said. "Your friend Denza will be there." Ari was shocked. "How do you know that?" Sedita's friend Ekin replied. "Because Yardam is smart." Ari was starting to get scared. He also noticed something strange. There weren't many people around in Springfield, but he saw some miners. Inside a building, he saw more miners, and far away, a miner riding a donkey. Yardam suddenly turned to Ari and said, "We haven't been honest with you." He pointed to a large cage nearby. Inside the cage were Sliwos and other creatures, all locked up. Denza was among them. "This beautiful town has the biggest slave market in the West," Yardam explained. "We help the miners by bringing Sliwos here. See, there's your friend." Ari was furious. "You're working with the miners. You're helping them." Yardam admitted. "Sometimes we trade Sliwos for guns. Miners make the best guns." Ekin nodded, holding one of the guns and pointing it at Ari. The humans locked Ari and Lump in the cage with the other Sliwos. Denza ran to them. "I thought I'd never see you again," she cried. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "It's not your fault," Ari said, hugging her. He looked around and saw many Sliwos. "How long have you been here?" he asked one of them. "Not long." "They'll sell us soon," a young Sliwo named Ked answered. He pointed to his sick-looking brother, Haken. "We need to escape," Ari said. He asked Lump for ideas, but Lump just frowned. He wasn't a fighter. Then Lump noticed one of the miners doing something with a donkey. He took out his notebook and wrote a note. "It's getting dark," Lump wrote, and drew a picture of a donkey. He smiled and added a drawing of a key. Ari looked at the donkeys. One of them had a small leather bag. Could the keys to the cage be in there? They watched as Yardam and the humans made deals with the miners. They even sold the golden crown. Denza was angry and muttered, "He lied about everything." Later that night, the humans left. The guards were distracted, drinking and playing cards. Some of the donkeys were standing near the cage, free to move around. Lump tapped Ari, who woke Denza and Ked. None of them had been sleeping. Slowly, The Sluos stood up. Lump's hand began to glow softly, and the donkeys noticed. Curious, they walked over to Lump. He gently took the leather bag from one donkey. Inside was the key. Ari unlocked the cage, and the Sluos quietly took weapons from the guards. They gathered the donkeys and began their quiet escape from Springfield. Tomorrow, they would avoid Hillside on their way back to Bird's Field. Ari, Denza, and Lump would tell their townspeople what had happened. They would also free the other captured Sluos. The Sluos would unite and build an army. They would fight back against the miners and against the humans too, if needed. Ari and his friends had learned two important things. The world was a dangerous place, and they should never trust humans again. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I hope you enjoyed the video.